Welcome to the Canby City Council regular meeting for October 17th, 2018. If you'll please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Just for tonight, I'm asking everyone to take a moment of silence, please, and collect your thoughts and do what you need to do.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Next on our agenda this evening is a presentation from Northwest Natural Gas. I believe, yes, hello. Just a reminder for everyone as you come up to the microphone this evening, make sure to push the push button and that it's green and that you talk into it so that it can be heard here and at home. So there we go. Hello.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, City staff, thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Nina Carlson, and I am the Local Government Affairs Representative for Northwest Natural. And today I'm coming to you in advance of legislation that's possibly coming out of Salem this next session, talking a little bit about what Northwest Natural is doing proactively to address climate change and carbon and protect our ratepayers. So without further ado, we'll start it. Gotta love technology.
Yeah. Yours is on the. Excuse me. Judy, hand me the paper.
Feel free to give the land use presentation.
Yeah, I'm giving it back. Wow. We would definitely make the Oregonian tomorrow. There you go. Thank you. So the information I'm about to share with you guys, and I'm going to keep it at a really high level, kind of buzz through this. You feel free to stop me as I go through, and at the end, if you have just basically utility questions, want to know what we're up to and other things, you have at it. But this work kind of came out of some strategic initiatives that we looked at as a company to see where we were with risk going forward in our business plan and with our ratepayers, and we recognized that climate legislation was probably one of those areas. So this is our proactive response to what we see coming out of Salem, not because we're regulated to do this, but because we feel it's the right thing, and proactive is usually much better policy than reactive. So Northwest Natural really does believe in a low carbon future, and we believe it requires collective action, meaning all of us working together. And we feel as your local gas distribution company that we're uniquely situated to help with that policy and with life in that future. And it breaks down into basically three objectives. A long-term goal of deep decarbonization, meaning a less carbon intensive product, and in a manner achieved in a manner that's leaving no one behind. And there again, that means protecting our ratepayers, keeping our energy affordable and available for all of us. We also believe there are near-term actions we can do with our current infrastructure to help reach these goals, and that we can lead the way in practices across the value stream from the wellhead to the burner tip. And we'll go into those a little bit more. So if you remember nothing from this presentation other than some of the basics of this slide, we're doing really well. What the pie chart there shows is Oregon's greenhouse gas emissions. And you can see, a lot of people don't realize this, but 30% of those greenhouse gas emissions are from creating electricity. Transportation at 36%. And Northwest Natural customer use is about 8%, and with our residential customer use being about 5% of Oregon's greenhouse gas emissions. So what does that 5% of emissions actually do? Well, on an average day, we serve about 74% of the residential square footage in our service territory, which ranges from the border with Washington all the way down to Eugene, out to the Dalles, and then quite a few coastal communities of Newport, Lincoln City, Astoria, and Coos Bay. And then on that really cold morning when there's no wind and there's no solar, we can provide up to 90% of the heating needs for our region, and all of that for 5% of greenhouse gas emissions. However, we don't feel that's good enough. So our goal is a 30% carbon savings by 2035 based on a baseline or our usage in 2015. And we're going to achieve that in 3 basic buckets. The number one being reducing the carbon intensity of our product. And that means in our business model, in the way we work, in upstream methane reduction, really working with our suppliers to make sure that they're using best practices and not having any leaks in the extraction process. And one thing that I like to reassure folks about is our system is probably held up as one of the tightest systems in the nation, and we are one of the first gas utilities to be able to say that we have no bare steel in the ground. It is all either coated steel or poly pipe, and that is really why we are such a leak-free system. Additionally, we are injecting renewable natural gas, which we'll talk about in a minute where that comes from, into our system. And we are working with really some very interesting technology to be able to use our system in a less carbon intense way. Additionally, we work with our customers, and the key thing about that is a lot of people don't realize that we are a decoupled utility, meaning the gas that we sell you, we don't make money on. We sell it to you as a pass-through. And in fact, you're going to see a credit on your bill this next month because if we are able to buy it at a more effective or cost-effective price, we pass that savings on to our customers. And with that, we're able to really work with our customers and our home builders and our HVAC contractors to have the best, most efficient equipment that is installed in homes. So that's one way that we really encourage people to use gas in their home, but use, as we like to say, sip the gas, not quaff it down. So additionally, probably one of the more exciting areas is transportation. And we recognize that the passenger vehicle is really great for electrics, but your heavy haul return to base fleets, that they really can't get the job done. And we see it what we call compressed natural gas, or CNG, a really good alternative for some of our fleets. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So our product, I talked about renewable natural gas, and we're very excited to be partnering currently with the City of Portland, and what they are basically doing is, in a wastewater treatment plant, it produces methane. Typically that methane would be flared into the atmosphere. Right now we have worked with them to be able to install equipment to capture that methane, scrub it, and be able to either use it on site to fuel city vehicles, and the remainder they sell back to us to inject in our pipeline. And another exciting technology that we are hoping to really move forward with is what we call power to gas. So people don't think about our pipeline very much in the ground, which is fine. However, our ratepayers have paid for it, and it can do more than just deliver gas to your home. A lot of times the renewables will come in large waves. It's very, very sunny. There's a lot of solar energy being produced. Battery storage is not up to snuff right now. So what do you do with that extra electricity? What you can do is you can use electrolysis and pull those hydrogen atoms out and be able to store those on our pipeline for later use. And we are currently about ready to launch a pilot program with another utility in Oregon to try that. So the last thing with our product, reducing our intensity, is again working upstream to reduce any methane reduction from wellhead and transmission. We talked a little bit about our customers. We really encourage builders to look at incorporating solar and other renewables in their homes, working with them to introduce and make sure that they're aware of the newest, most efficient types of equipment that are out there. And one of the things that's a really good, well-kept secret, we actually, a lot of you have probably heard of PGE's Clean Energy Program. We have something equivalent, what we call smart energy, and what that does is gas customers pay a small surplus on their bill. That money is pooled and administered by Climate Trust, and they go ahead and find programs or projects that will either sequester carbon or help, like say, a dairy farmer install methane capturing equipment on his manure lagoons. So there's lots of different things that we're doing. And I encourage you, if this is an important thing to you, to go to our Smart Energy website and take a look about maybe signing up. So if I get one sign up tonight, I will really feel like we're getting the job done. And lastly, transportation, and I bring that up to you because a lot of times this has got to be done on a larger scale, city fleets, local, regional partnerships, and I just want to make sure that our electeds in the area know that this is a possibility. We're a really great company, but we're really terrible about telling our story and talking about the different options that you can use natural gas for. This is one. The key thing with the CNG vehicles, your dump trucks and things like dump trucks and your waste haulers, anything that's returned to base, it has kind of a double benefit. It's much cleaner than the cleanest biodiesel you can get, but additionally, it can get you up to about a 90% reduction in air pollution, which is a nice benefit as well. So, if you have more questions, I'd be happy to take them after the fact, but you can learn a lot more detail than you possibly could maybe ever want at our website, our new campaign, the website being Less We Can. So just go to northwestnatural.com/lesswecan. So are there any questions?
On the first slide you showed us that had the pie chart of energy uses and its carbon impact. My question is, far more Oregonians use electricity than natural gas because natural gas isn't available everywhere, right? Is that accurate or is that not accurate?
Well, we have in our service territory about 740,000 customers. And I would say possibly as a statewide, it may be different, but we really concentrate in the metro area where the vast majority of your population is. And that's right. Because it's easier to serve we have pipes in the ground that have to deliver to every house, and it really is not cost effective to be able to run long strands out to say.
Sure. No, I totally get that. I was wondering more about that particular pie chart. Was that all of Oregon, or was that just your service area?
That's our service territory.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out.
No, I'm sorry. That pie chart comprises what our customers, so the 740,000 folks that use our product, contribute to Oregon's greenhouse gas emissions totally.
Okay. So my question is just really out of curiosity, but because it's hard to compare total carbon impact when you're dealing with different amounts of populations using different fuel sources. But if a home, like a family of 4 home uses electricity and a family of 4 home uses Northwest natural gas, and they have similar usage, what's the difference in carbon impact between similar homes?
Well, one way you can look at it, and these numbers may be off 1% or 2%, but we talk about source versus site. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when there is not renewable energy, hydro, solar or wind, the electric companies generate their power either by coal, which is sunsetting, or by burning natural gas to turn the turbines to create the electricity. They can create electricity with natural gas at about anywhere between a 50 and 60% efficiency there. Mm-hmm. Then they have to send it through the lines. There's line loss. They're delivering it to your home at about a 50 to 60% efficiency of the fuel. Mm-hmm. We can bring it to your burner tip through our pipe in 90 percentile efficiency. So if you look at it in a site versus source, we really do bring it to homes in the most efficient way with the least amount of carbon generated. And that's really detailed, but we have, I want to say EPA data showing that. That's not just me making that up, besides maybe being 1% or 2% off, but it's really the most efficient way to bring it to the home and use it there.
Any other questions? No? Anything over on this side? Councilor Parker? No?
Well, I thank you guys very much. And during the session, if you have your state legislators wanting to know things, I have a lot of people back at the ranch with a lot longer titles and a lot more letters behind their name that can really give you detailed information. But I appreciate you listening to me tonight. So have a good one.
Thank you for being here. Great, we'll move into communications. Mr. Robinson.
Nothing for right now. Thank you.
First opportunity for citizen input and community announcements. So it's your opportunity for the audience here to address the council on non-agenda items. I have a few cards here, so if you will go through these, take a couple minutes. So first up is Hannah Ray Lambert. Talking to us about CTV5. Hi, Hannah, how are you?
I'm good, and I missed
Nope.
which.
It's on,
Oh,
so
it's
you're
on.
good.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. All right. So good evening, and thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak. As you said, my name's Hannah Ray Lambert, and I wanted to publicly voice an issue that I've approached several city officials about over the last year, but unfortunately with no results. Just a couple blocks down the street from this room is a small, unassuming building that you might miss if you aren't specifically looking for it. But inside is a professional quality TV studio with state-of-the-art sound, editing, and video equipment. Up until a year ago, anyone in Canby could use the station to produce and air original content. You could make a music video, film interviews with political candidates, as I did with at least one of you. You could host your own talk show, interview the owner of a new local business, and much, much more. This was all made possible by the work of a few volunteers and by the franchise fees that everyone in Canby pays in their cable bill. I volunteered at Channel 5, otherwise known as CTV, for several months in 2016 and fell in love with it. The experience kept me busy and kept my skills sharp until I got a quote-unquote real job and moved to California. When I moved back to Oregon last fall, one of the first items on my to-do list was to get involved again. But November, next month, will mark 1 year since I and other volunteers were able to access the station. I've sent dozens of emails and Facebook messages over the past year and made several phone calls to the interim executive director, requesting studio time to create, edit, and broadcast projects. However, the majority of my requests were not answered at all, and the ones that were kind of vague, with "I'm still working on inventory and occasionally I'll keep you in the loop," but never actually any resolution. In February, I reached out to the chair of the CTV board of directors. I got a fast response saying, quote, "We are hoping that the studio will be back up and serviceable here in the next few weeks as we finish up checking in the last of the gear." Then silence. I waited 2 months and tried again, but no solution. In August, I approached you, Mr. Mayor, and I thought you seemed to take my concerns seriously and you promised to keep me in the loop, but I've reached out twice since then and still have not heard anything. I honestly don't know what to do anymore. No one is giving me answers. Over the past year, I've gone all the way up the chain of command, and I understand that everyone is just doing the best they can, but this station is supposed to be available for use by the public. It is a valuable asset to the community. It provides hands-on experience for people interested in the communications business. It gives people of all ages a creative outlet, and it offers great exposure for businesses, organizations, and anyone who has something to say. The interim executive director has regularly been using the studio and channel to air his own work, and I think this is entirely inappropriate. Channel 5 is a public access channel. It's supposed to be available for the public, not just one man and whichever friends he decides to unlock the door for. And the fact that he's able to use the station for whatever he wants removes any incentive for the inventory process to get done. I am pleading with you, the City Council, to do something. Return the public access station to the public, or perhaps give them back a year's worth of their franchise fees. Thank you.
Hannah, thank you for coming, and I apologize. We did meet, and my schedule has been less than cooperative for me to meet with Gordon Christensen to address the concerns that we had talked about. So I do apologize for that piece. In terms of, Councilor Renzo, you're still the liaison to CTV5?
No,
or it's-
Councilor
sorry,
Spoon is.
Councilor Spoon. Is there anything that you can address on the matters right now, or is there?
No, I mean, as
Can we-
liaison, I go to the meetings, I engage with them and answer questions, but we're not involved in the management of the station. So I have the same answers you've gotten, and I can't really give you more than that because I don't know. And the board meeting today was canceled. But I would be happy to also reach out to the chair and some of the other board members to try and see if we can get some solution in the, I don't know that it'll happen right away, but at least work towards a solution with maybe a timeline would be, I think, appropriate.
If we could, Councilor Spoon, I guess, yeah, work with the board here to get some sort of a timeline piece. I know that.
I wasn't
you're the-
aware that people weren't having, that there wasn't access to anyone. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't aware that they didn't have access available to anyone. I just thought that they weren't allowing equipment to leave the studio. So that's kind of brand new information to me. And
Well, and I know that there are board members watching tonight, and that we'll make sure that gets elevated and that gets addressed.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I do think it's important to note that this council and mayor have no authority over CTV5 or its operations, that it's really the CTV5 Board of Directors, and they do conduct open meetings that you should come and provide the same information to. The city does contribute city general fund dollars to assure that our council meetings and planning commission meetings are broadcast on the air. But beyond that $36,000 a year contribution, we don't have a voice in how the operations are administered.
Where are their meeting information? Where's
And
that posted?
I will, I'm not sure if it's posted anywhere because it's not a public notice meeting like the other ones because it's a private board. It's usually is today the third Tuesday of the month. And it's usually at CTV5 and I get emails alerting me of when it is because the board's schedule can change and so sometimes they move it. And I would be happy, I think I have your email, but I can get it from you again to reach out to you when the next meeting is and let you know.
That would be awesome, thank you.
Councilor Parker?
Rick, could you help me understand this a little bit better? Who appoints the board?
I'm not sure. They appoint themselves.
It's independent. I think
Yeah.
people apply if there is an opening. I don't know how long the terms are. It's an independent
It's
group,
not-
so I believe that they appoint and then, kind of internally through the organization.
That's my understanding.
Well, I appreciate you bringing this to us. I'm not pleased to hear this. This is the first I've heard about it. I come out of a media background as well, and I have a lot of respect for community television. So let me ask a few questions, and I guess the sweet spot of this is going to be the board of directors, and it will help if they hold regular meetings. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Smith?
Yes, thank you for bringing this up. I know over the last year, there's probably been a half dozen times people have solicited people to make their own videos, and if it wasn't even available, we've been sort of speaking out of turn, so I think that you have a lot of sympathy up here for you. But Rick, my question is it theoretically possible for us to have a supplementary budget meeting to address the $36,000?
I don't think that's a proper discussion for this. You can certainly schedule a supplemental budget hearing for any reason as directed by the chair. So the simple answer to that question is yes. But relative to whether we continue to make a contribution to CTV5 so that they will continue to air our council meetings and planning commission meetings is probably the subject of a larger discussion than just a budget hearing.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Hannah. Patty Green, about the Shakespeare project? Good evening.
My name is Patty Green. I live at 2392 Southeast First Avenue, corner of First and Walnut. I'm here to speak to you today about the Shakespeare project that's going to impact so the Shakespeare project comes down First Avenue, out off of Hines, off of 99, not First downtown.
Correct. So Project Shakespeare is a project that is in heavy conversation for the industrial park. So when we go through it and we are working with businesses, we associate a code name with that project. So as we're working on it, we can protect the innocent until ink is dried and things are signed. So we assign like I said, a project name. So this one happens to be Project Shakespeare. So it is a company that is looking to locate here at Canby and build a building for their business. Yes, I believe it's Southeast First and Malino. Yes. So yeah, Southeast First, not downtown or 99E, but back as you come in off of Haynes Road, like you're going to enter go back into the southeast portion of Canby. It's in that back corner there of the city, behind, what's the furniture outlet, back in there. So, yes.
Yes, so I am at it borders First Molino Highway and Walnut. My driveway is at the end of Walnut.
Okay.
This is a project that is going to be a 35-acre building, over a 500,000 square foot building, if that's better. The impact, we did go to a presentation that they put on for the people that live around there. I'm right across the street, so they're building in the city, which I think it's great the city's growing. Me and my husband just moved back here after 20-something years of being out of state and finally got home. Chose this community. My mom raised the last of 8 kids here, 3 of them. Loved it, so we chose to buy here. I just bought the 3.5 acres, but they're going to build a 35-acre building across from me and I'm more concerned about the traffic going down First and coming off of Haynes, because that's where they're going to come. It is not, it's not able to handle that. The infrastructure that I've been looking through from 2009, the traffic reports that Canby did, and all the way to 2030, we've already passed those numbers by the industrial that's going up now. This building is going to impact, we're a county across the street. It's going to impact our water systems because they have 85 trucks. At 35 trucks an hour, 840 trucks a day. This building is going to be open 24/7, 7 days a week. That puts 26,000 trucks going past my door every month. I just want to be aware I'm going to be coming to the meetings. What I can do, since I'm across the street in the county, I'm not sure, because everything that the investors are saying is that they have to follow city code. But I am in the urban development, so I'm not sure where it sets me. I think I'll find out, but I don't know. I've never done this, so.
That's okay. We've been on a very steep learning curve in terms of land use and development. As I don't know if you've seen the agenda this evening, with the annexations and things like that.
Yes.
So there's a lot that we are learning as well. I can tell you that we do, with any business, again, this is a project that is in conversation. As far as I'm aware, I don't know if anything's been inked or signed as of yet. But the business presentation, so the company that is, there's 2 companies involved. There's the company that's building the building, and then there's the company that's going to then move in and lease from the developer. And so they will absolutely, that's part of all of our due diligence work with them, is to make sure that, water, power, sewer is adequate and meets city standards and follows what we can handle capacity-wise. And then the road piece is something that we are working on addressing as that project, if it were to come to fruition. There are transportation pieces that we are tying to this project and trying to get accomplished to alleviate some of the traffic concerns that you have mentioned, because we are aware of the amount of traffic increase that will occur.
I just sat down and did 2 studies myself on just past my house, and it's unbelievable. And everybody that showed up to the meeting, that's all they stated. The infrastructure is not there, because they will come off of 99. They will come down Haynes to First, and that building will cover. But my concern again is it's all city there. So what do I do with my property? Because they're putting street lights up. It's going to light up. I have animals that can't. The silly things like that I'm thinking of, because I retired there. We bought.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So do I change my coding to annex into the city, or change it to R1, or?
So with those questions like that, what I'll say is, Ms. Green, is that city staff has your address and information here, okay? And what I would recommend is following up with our planning department on that piece. And I'm sure we can pass her information along to staff and put it on their radar that you'll be reaching out to have some.
Because
get
I've
some of these
reached out to
points.
Shakespeare a couple
Okay.
times and have not heard, they have not, because like I said, I'm on a well, so I'm worried about my water.
Sure.
And the traffic. I'm all for the city building, but
Yeah,
didn't
my
see that
guess is,
coming.
yeah, my guess with, on their end, it'd probably be best to reach out to our staff upstairs.
Oh, I have also.
Okay.
I've spoke to Brian Brown.
Okay.
I've also spoke to the county,
Okay.
Kent, that is
Okay.
also working on the project and have
Okay.
gone to the meeting. So I'm trying to learn all this, but
Sure.
I'm scared.
No, and,
That's understandable.
yeah, absolutely. And I know our planning team and our city staff, and they will answer the questions that you have. They'll help you understand and walk through what's going on, for sure.
Because I hear they're fast tracking, and I don't know how that's possible if you don't have the highways and the infrastructure set in place before they do this. They're talking about breaking ground, I mean, this coming year and being done. I mean, I know, I will. I appreciate, thank you.
Yeah, hang on, what, Counselor Smith?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to address, it sounds to me from the words you're using that you think we know more than we do. But let me pull the curtain, pull back the curtain, is
No,
that the city councilors, the mayor knows more than the rest of us usually, but the rest of the city councilors would not know probably a single thing about this at all until much later in the process. So you're way ahead of the curve. Stay ahead of the curve if you want to be involved. We appreciate you coming here, but probably the other 6 of us don't know a thing about
No,
this yet.
and Brian Brown did explain that to me, that it hasn't even come in front of you, that it will on the 10th. So, yeah, and I also heard him speak, I didn't think anybody knew about it. I just found out myself, so.
Yeah, and like, to Counselor Smith's point, I mean, a lot of these pieces like that, I'm aware because of just, again, position and conversation and whatnot, and until we know for sure that we're even, like, something's been sent and we're expecting a signature back, we don't even, I don't count it until I know that we've got, land purchased and that we've got people involved, and that's generally when, the rest of the details get disseminated out to the rest of the council in that regards. Yeah.
Thank you for your time, Ken.
No, thank you for coming, appreciate it. Next card I have is Kathy Ray Smith about the Canby Garden Club. Hi, Kathy Ray.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me a few moments. About 2 years ago, I think it was, there were some of us, predominantly the Canby Garden Club, that decided that we wanted to do something to take an active part in enhancing the beautification of Canby, particularly the experience of someone driving through 99. We have a tagline of the garden spot, and yet it's my impression that a lot of 99 doesn't really convey that. So about 2 years ago, we got a donation with the help of Mallory, who was then the director of the Chamber of Commerce, and we had a donation of about 10,000 bulbs from the Wooden Shoe farm, and we planted those along 99. Last year, we had 50 knockout roses that we planted along there, as well as, again, donations of bulbs from the Wooden Shoe. The reason that I'm here today is that I'm just wanting to keep you informed and solicit involvement. On a month from today, on Saturday the 17th, the Saturday before Thanksgiving at 10 a.m., we're going to be doing a planting across from the Northwest Furniture Outlet, a continuation of the roses with an additional 50 knockout rose bushes, and we hope to have some bulbs to plant as well. And my hope is that, as with last year, it becomes a growing community involvement so that we can all take pride in not only the beauty and well-being of our community, but also the fact that we have an active hand in that. So I would like to extend an invitation to each and every one, and also say, please spread the word. It's just show up at 10, dressed for the weather, rain or shine. Come with your shovel, come with your gloves. We'll supply the roses and the bulbs and hopefully some ground cover to continue with that. And I'm going to be putting together, I hope to be putting together a 5-year plan and proposing that to the city, and as well as we've been talking with Kiwanis for possible funding and Rotary. And last year, and hopefully this year, we had scout troops, we had firefighters, people from the community. It's really a lot of fun, and it's heartwarming to have people showing up and taking a part. And what I'm looking for is that, you know, it's a multi-generational thing, that kids that are taking part can show their kids what they planted in, you know, a generation from now. So thank you so much for your time. And that date again is November 17th, the Saturday before Thanksgiving, 10 a.m., rain or shine, come with shovels and gloves.
Remind me of the location again?
It's on Highway 99E, right across from the Northwest Furniture Outlet, where we've planted roses. We're just going to continue from there and work our way through Canby, wherever there's a spot available. And I'm out of time, but I just want to mention, if I hadn't, that we have managed to secure a permit through ODOT, the Garden Club. So
Perfect. Cool.
We're now doing it with approval.
We did that 2 years ago, didn't we?
No, 2 years ago, we were
we
doing
did
it under the wire, sneaking.
Whoops.
That's right, we asked we're sorry.
Ask for
No,
forgiveness.
I was helping out there 2 years ago, and somebody said, well, aren't you concerned about being a city councilor and not having legal authority to plant these plants? And I said, I can't wait for the Canby Herald to run an article saying, city councilor arrested for planting flowers. So,
It can be the garden spot.
Right, absolutely. Well, thank you, Kathy Wright.
Thank you so much.
I know you've
I
been
appreciate
instrumental
your
in
time.
this, in the garden club and the beautification, and it was fun to, and Wade Park, and the art design out in front of the library, so, but thank you very much for your involvement, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, talk to you soon. Next up is Greg Perez, announcement about Veterans Day. Mr. Perez, how are you, sir?
Good.
Good.
Good evening, everybody, mayor and city officials. I just want to let everybody know that we are going to start a new tradition. It'll be our inaugural Veterans Day celebration at the Vietnam Memorial Park on Highway 99. So this year we're going to involve a lot of the veterans. We have Salem on board with this, and there's going to be a pig feed. So that's my donation to feed 250, 300 people. So after the event, we're going to move over to the American Legion, and it'll be open to the public. So I just want everybody to know that this will be the inaugural one, and we're going to in turn build from this. And then later on, we'll go to a small parade and have our own celebration for the veterans that took part. It'll be on November 11th on Sunday.
What time again?
The
Greg?
time is going to be 10:15 is going to be the arrival time, and then we will post the colors at 10:30, and then it'll move from there to where we may have an aircraft coming, and we may not, we don't know, but then we also have Armistice Day that is in turn going to be combined. As in 1954, they changed the name at that time over to Veterans Day. So it's going to be a great time. It's going to be a good fellowship with the community, with the families and the children, and we'd like everybody to come. It's open to everybody. All righty?
Thank you.
And we need to talk.
Yes, we do, sir.
All righty.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then my last yellow card is an agenda item, so great. Thank you, everyone, for your comments and questions tonight. We're moving to mayor's business. Just a couple of things. From the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee from a couple weeks ago, really the only couple presentations, but the big thing was we got an update regarding some UGB expansion. So the Metro Chief Operating Officer for the Metro organization or body of government in the Portland area has accepted recommendations and has passed on to the Metro Council for approval. UGB expansion for 4 cities into the rural reserve area. So King City, Hillsborough, Wilsonville, and Beaverton were given approval to move ahead with UGB expansions. That will be, and then that's triggering the Metro group to take a look at their urban growth concept plan for the year 2040. So they're going to be opening up that process and looking at what that's going to mean in terms of growth. And so immediate impact, like two things for us in Canby is, so Wilsonville being one of those being impacted, that will be, so one of the areas is the Frog Pond area that they're annexing into the UGB, and that's going to be 600 dwellings on that part of Wilsonville. And then in all, with the UGB expansion of Wilsonville is going to be in the neighborhood of about 1,300 new dwellings. So that's going to be a mix of apartments and single-family homes in the Wilsonville area. So on that piece, how's that relevant for Canby is that that gives, I think, a little bit more weight for the I-5 connection piece of going into the rural reserve piece. And then for us, as we look at our comp plan conversation coming up in the next couple of years and how that's going to look for our urban growth boundary and where is that going to put us in the future as we look at, again, the amount of annexations and housing that we're building and things like that. So again, kind of an FYI, but I think relevant to Canby. Last night I had the Park Advisory Board meeting. So there was a presentation from Carol Palmer, who's the chair of the Canby Heritage Landmark Commission. So she made a presentation to the advisory board. And then there was a presentation or discussion of a presentation that may be coming to council. There's still concern by the Park Advisory Board about where quote unquote park employees' time is being spent. The feeling is that it's not necessarily on strictly park maintenance and deferred maintenance, but that it's being divvied out elsewhere. So I stay tuned. That may be coming in terms of an official presentation to the council. The other piece that was discussed last night, our Public Works Director shared with the Park Advisory Board the RFP for the master plan, or the most updated version. So they did express their continued concern to be not in favor of a new master plan. So there was actually quite a list of concerns or thoughts on the matter. So I've asked them to craft a one-page letter to the council expressing those concerns or outlining what those may be and an explanation behind it. And I've also started crafting a response to the Park Advisory Board on their concerns that were mentioned last night. So I will keep you informed on both of those pieces. Finally, on Monday, October 22nd, from 5 to 7 p.m. in the Dahlia Building is the Civic Block Visioning Community Meeting. So we're asking business owners and citizens and people that are just wanting to express some interest in how downtown or that civic block is getting developed, and how that may trigger other development into downtown, to please come down. It is from 5 to 7 on Monday, the 22nd. It'll be right in the Dahlia Building. There is a URL link to reserve a spot, but those that see it on social media, please register. Others, please show up. We're having a lot of conversation about that building, that block, and how that kind of can, the ripple effect through downtown. So please mark your calendar for that. And that's all that I have for right now. We'll move into council comments and reports. Councilor Smith.
Planning Commission was canceled on Monday, and so I have no further report, but the Fire District is here. Mr. English, do you have anything to report? No. Okay. No problem. The bond measure is out there. That's being publicized quite widely, and so everyone will pay attention to that soon.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Councilor Parker?
Well, I just have a question to our city administrator. It's my understanding that the RFP is going to be issued next week. Is that correct?
Unless I receive direction otherwise.
Nope.
Okay.
All right. Well, I just think, that train has already left the station, so I wanted to clarify that. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Councillor Hensley.
Well, you already covered C4, Mr. Mayor, and so actually, before I get to my comments, this actually came in my mail that I got when I got to the dais, so I wanted to take care of this first. Nicole, who I think is in charge of the prayer group that has been praying for us for all these years, has sent me the orange cards. These are the ones, your names are on them, I think I put them in the correct order, on the backs with all the dates in which they have been praying for us. And here are the new cards that they would like filled out, and I have the SASE to send them back, so you can get them to me or get them to Kim, and Kim can get to me, and I'll mail them off, and they can continue their good gestures there, because we always need that, right? Okay, and so really I only have a couple of things. I actually visited a place called Fido Pet Food Bank this week. And I didn't even know this thing existed, but they serve all of the county, including our city. They have several programs, and the Animals program, they actually facilitate through the Canby Adult Center. But this outfit, they do 7,300 meals every other week with us. About 500,000 last year were served through the Animals alone. But they also have a pet food bank in Oregon City that anyone in the county can utilize. They have veterans program, they have emergency response. They were reviewed, helping with the wildfires and taking care of pets there, including large animals, not just cats and dogs like they do here. But this is a great organization, and so I've invited them. They'll probably come in the meeting in November and do a presentation, but I just kind of wanted to give a shout out to Fido Pet Food Bank, because I think they're doing some great work there, and it's an all-volunteer organization. And then that moves me to the next thing I have, which is really time sensitive here, because we did just observe World Mental Health Day last week, and the Suicide Prevention Task Force has been really busy working on many projects. A couple of us attended a listening session last week that the county did over at Lee School, because the county is now working towards a coalition for mental health awareness. And so Joyce and I went to that. That was very informative, just listening to some of the folks there. And actually picked up another committee member of our own there, so that was kind of nice. I want to give a big thank you to the Rotary. They did their Tour de Italy fundraising dinner and auction last weekend. It was a wonderful event. It's actually the first time I attended that event, and I attended because of my affiliation with the task force. But it was a great, fun event, and their fundraising efforts were directed towards our task force. I don't have any numbers yet, but I'm told they're coming soon, but I can't imagine it being anything less than successful by the turnout that we had. So I want to thank the Rotary and everyone who attended that event. And also, Cusforce Thriftway does the Taste of the Season every year, and tomorrow night is their one for this year from 4 to 7 p.m. And they have a $5 suggested donation. They don't turn in any arms for that. They'll let you taste and go through the event anyway. But I want you to know that money is actually a fundraising effort, and they give it to different charities every year, so it's not paying for the wine and food that you're eating. And this year they're also donating that to the suicide prevention, so it's going for a good cause. So it's a fun and tasty way to support a good cause. So come tomorrow to Thriftway. And finally, we've been working with NAMI, National Association of Mental Illness. National Alliance of Mental Illness, getting some trainings and things here in town. And the first one we're doing is coming up. It's going to be November 12th from 7 to 8 p.m. right here in the public library in the Willamette room, so just across here from the chambers. And it's Sharing Hope. It's based on this little booklet, and it's only a 45-minute training on the basics of symptoms of some specific mental illnesses, particularly focusing on depression this time, because this time of the year we're getting up on the holidays. It's, the weather's going to turn, so we have those seasonal depression as well. And so we kind of wanted to get ahead of the holiday season and do it now. 45-minute training, because depression is more common than we'd like to think, and it's hidden well by some. So we want to learn how we can reach out to those folks, because they may not reach out to you. So this is an important training, and I invite everybody to come to it. Again, that is Monday, November 12th, 7 to 8 p.m. in the Willamette Room here in this building. And that is all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Councilor. Council President Dale.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, real quick tonight from Canby Utility, just making it known that they have adopted a 10% increase in hookup and installation fees for meters and laterals. Laterals are the piping that runs from a main up to a house meter. And that is just purely to keep them whole in regards to materials and labor cost. And they wanted me to emphasize that they did not increase SDCs. This is just hookup fees. But the big news out of Cub for this week is this Friday, October 19th at 11 a.m. They will be doing the grand opening of their new headquarters over on 4th and Pine. Be there early at 11, and you'll get to see our mayor speechify and cut the ribbon. And there'll be a tour of the building, so you'll get to have a great walkthrough from it. They're offering hot dogs and hamburgers, I believe, for lunch. And there's some fun little giveaways and things. The event is an open house, and it will last until 3 p.m. So that's 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. But be there early for the fun.
Yeah, I've been instructed that I get, I think, 3 minutes.
42 seconds is what I heard.
Oh, it's been even shorter.
That's what the chair told me. But anyway.
Well, and I will listen to the chair on that one. I'll see if I can set a record and get it done in 40. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Height.
Hello.
Please. Yes.
Thanks. I have several items because I deferred my report last time. So just to warn you properly, there is a thank you event for the Canby Independence Day volunteers from last year. It's kind of a delayed thank you event that's happening October 29th, 5 to 7 in the Willamette Room there. So that's nice that Jamie and the new employee, Calvin, I believe his name is, are putting this on. So if you volunteered for the Independence Day back on the 4th of July, come on down. With the library, they would like to expand their board from 5 to 7 people. They would like to expand in order to include a student representative and an unincorporated representative, because of course our service area extends beyond the city limits, and they would like to have a placeholder for that representation, so they're working on that. They had that survey that we told you about. It closed the end of September. There'll be a PowerPoint presentation coming eventually about those results. I think our library director will put that together, so we'll see that eventually. They have this outreach van that I think I've mentioned before. It's kind of interesting. I guess they swapped with the police department. The police department had a van, library had a car. The police department was kind enough to swap because they realized, hey, a van would be better for driving out. You know, it's like a mobile mini library. So that's pretty cool, and they're going to be painting some graphics on the side of it. So if you see that thing chugging along through Canby, that's our kind of mobile, like our mini bookmobile. So that's cool. Good outreach they're doing there. The library board is working to, well, actually they did approve this. They want to lower the library card age from 18 to 14. So in other words, before a kid had to have parent approval, you had to be 18 or older to get your own library card. You had to have a parent co-sign, but they decided to just lower the age for, you know, letting kids have more responsibility, independence in the library, and the parents won't be responsible for fines that aren't paid, however, so it's not a huge burden to us parents that might have kids that don't pay their fines. But it's good outreach for the younger kids, I think. Melissa Kelly, I wanted to say, who was our former library director for a couple years here, or about a year here, she was promoted to the director of Lake Oswego Public Library. So I wanted to say thank you to her. We all knew her fairly well, so good to see her spread her wings. And the donor board is done. I just breezed past it when I came in, but check it out. Like, we're pretty excited. The library board is delighted that that thing is finished, so I'm glad that's finished. With Bridging Cultures, their Thanksgiving dinner is coming up November 17th at Baker Prairie Middle School, 5 p.m. And they also have their English classes. I think Councilor Spoon mentioned this last time too. Mondays and Wednesdays, those are happening until December 5th. So that's about all they have to share. Canby Area Transit, I'm just going to read this verbatim. I missed the meeting, but our director wanted me to communicate this with you. CAT's project list for statewide transportation improvement fund funding is making its way through the process and has been approved by the Transit Advisory Committee, the Rural Clackamas County Stiff Committee, and the TriMet Stiff Committee. The TriMet board is expected to approve the regional project list, and then TriMet will forward CAT's projects along with the rest of the region's projects to ODOT by November 1st for distribution funds in July. Their projects in order of priority are new Saturday service on the Route 99X and local dial-a-ride. 2 is the purchase of 2 vehicles for a new local circulator service to be implemented sometime after 2022, and a one-time purchase of technology upgrades. Also, they're focusing more on Spanish outreach with their website. They're trying to recruit a Spanish-speaking board member. So if any of you, us or the public, have a Spanish-speaking friend or are Spanish-speaking yourself, please recruit that person to join the CAT board. That would be great for them to have that representation. The school district, basically, I'll just kind of boil it down. You know how we talked at length about the fireworks after the football games a couple of months ago? I reached out to the interim athletic director about that. I said, hey, how's it going? And he had just stepped into the role as athletic director, so he wasn't up to speed on it. But in short, he actually, before homecoming, he left a flyer on the doorsteps of the homes that are close to the field, like adjacent to the high school property, that alerted them that, hey, homecoming is happening October 12th, expect fireworks. So it was a really nice outreach effort on his part. He took that on personally, and he understands the conundrum, like trying to please the fireworks crowd, but also being sensitive to citizens. So the school is trying to be sensitive to that. I'm not sure that they're any quieter this year. I'm not sure if the fireworks have been or not. I don't think so. But anyway, they're trying to make an effort, which is quite nice. And then other things I attended, the Canby Film Festival last week next door, pretty fun. The Rotary Tour to Italy, I attended that too. And then the Canby Ed Foundation's Taste of Autumn out at the farm. That was pretty fun too. So there we go. That's what I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate it. Counselor Spoon.
I didn't have any liaison meetings. They were canceled or not scheduled for the time period between this meeting and last meeting, but I have a couple of community announcements. On October 22nd, which is the same day as the Canby Visioning meeting at the Dahlia, if you live in Southwest Canby, we're having a neighborhood association meeting in the community room at Hope Village. The agenda is going to include, I believe, Jackie Jones, who has served our neighborhood association so well, is stepping down. She's in grad school now, and so I think that we're having a change in president and maybe a couple of updates on other things in the neighborhood. So if you live in Southwest Canby, it's October 22nd. Go to the visioning thing, and then when it's over, head over to the community room for a neighborhood association meeting. I also wanted to mention that a few like a small citizen group got together and did almost like a voter information in Spanish at Baker Prairie last weekend, and they were able to procure some materials in Spanish because you can't get the voters pamphlet in Spanish and whatnot. So they worked with a couple of organizations that make materials in Spanish, and I think they're planning to do that every election year. So I thought that was kind of neat, and hopefully next year I'll have an earlier awareness of it so that I can inform people ahead of time. But I just thought it was a great way to reach out and provide some materials in Spanish that aren't generally provided in Spanish. Halloween is October 31st. Canby Main Street is having the Halloween Spooktacular from 3 to 6, and that is trick-or-treating downtown, and then there's going to be crafts, and you can trick-or-treat for a book at the library every year, and then also there's going to be a costume parade leaving from Thriftway at 4:30. So if you have kids, please come from 3 to 6 downtown. I also wanted to give hearty applause to Hot Rod DreamWorks because I am so tickled by all the scarecrows downtown. I almost made one that looked like Mallory Gwynn and put it out in front of his coffee shop, but I ran out of time. But it's just really neat and a nice festive addition to downtown, and so next year I'm going to try and participate. And then finally, ballots were mailed today. So it was ballot drop day. Election day is November 6th. Your ballot does require a stamp if you're going to mail it back, so don't forget that. That would be sad to receive it back in the mail a few days after the election. But there are 2 Dropbox locations in Canby, so you'll probably, if you didn't get your ballot today, which I know some people in Multnomah County did, but I think Clackamas was dropping today. You should get it in the next couple days. The 2 Dropbox locations in Canby are right in front of the Civic Center, and then the other one, for the first time, is at Arneson Garden, over on Sequoia Parkway behind Fred Meyer's. So those are the 2 places you can take it, and you don't have to put postage on your ballot. If you don't get your ballot in the next week or so, definitely check with the county clerk if you're expecting one so that you can get a ballot made. And that is all I have.
Thank you.
If I could. Can I make-
Yes.
I would like to.
An addendum.
An addendum to my
Addendum
announcement.
liaison report.
Yes.
That's a first.
Because I did fail to mention on the NAMI training 2 things. 1, it's free to the public, and 2, it's my understanding it'll be bilingual. So I wanted to make that known.
Thank you. Thank you all for the updates, appreciate it. We'll move into the consent agenda.
Kim, we're putting off the approval of the minutes till the November meeting, right? They were late getting back from the transcriptionist. Okay.
All right,
So none tonight, Mr.
There
Mayor.
is none, okay. All right. Next on the agenda is public hearing for annexation 18-03 / zone change 18-03 for Icon Construction. So let me launch. Before I read the hearing procedure, I was remiss. We have a new toy in front. It is a timer. The timer is tied to the light there and controlled by our city recorder and our city attorney. They will program it as such. As it counts down, you'll have a green light. The yellow light will tell you to wrap things up, and the red light is to stop. So I will lay out here how much time people that want to make comment will have, and my friends here to the right will make sure that that is going, and I get to enforce the new timer. So if I need to, I will gavel. I haven't yet needed to do that in 6 years. I don't want to start now. So with all that being said, the matter before the City Council is a request to annex property into the City of Canby. Canby Municipal Code Section 16.84.050 requires the council to conduct a public hearing to evaluate the proposed annexation application and determine the appropriate zoning designation upon annexation. This matter requires a public hearing, and all interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this application, please fill out a yellow public testimony card. Those are located on the back there on the podium. At the appropriate time, please step forward to the microphone, state your name, address, and interest in the matter. Those people interested in testifying, please indicate that desire by raising your hand at this time. No one's turned in a yellow card, so if you change your mind, please fill out the yellow card and hand it to the city recorder. You may be limited by time for your presentation. The applicant will have a total of, I wrote this down for staff, 10 minutes to give their presentation. The proponents will be allowed 3 minutes each, and the opponents will be allowed 3 minutes each. The applicant will then have 5 minutes for rebuttal if need be. Testimony and evidence shall be directed to the applicable criteria listed in the staff report or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulations which you believe applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. All questions will be directed through the mayor. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. Conflicts of interest. At this time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest, please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from hearing the present matter. Councilor Smith?
I don't have any conflicts, but I should probably declare a potential conflict. I noticed when I was reading the packet, Scott Vandecouvering is one of the applicants, and I coach his son and know him pretty well. So,
you still plan to participate?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Councilor Parker?
No conflict, will participate.
Thank you. Councilor Hensley?
No conflict, will participate.
Councilor Dale?
No conflicts, will participate.
Councilor Height?
No conflict, participating.
And Councilor Spoon?
No conflict, and I'll participate.
I also have no conflict and will participate. Ex parte contact. Also, if any member of the hearing body has any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time. Councilor Smith?
None.
Councilor Parker?
None.
Councilor Hensley?
None.
Council President Dale?
None.
Councilor Height?
I drive by it frequently, but that's it.
Okay. Councilor Spoon?
None.
All right. And I have also had no ex parte contact. Does any member of the audience have any questions for any councilor or the mayor regarding ex parte contact or conflicts of interest? All right. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. We will have the staff report, questions of staff by the hearing body. I will open the public hearing for testimony. We'll hear from the applicant, then proponents, opponents, rebuttal if necessary, then I will close the public testimony. Questions, if any, by the hearing body of staff, and then discussion by the hearing body. A decision shall be made by the council at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future for further action by this body. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. The City Council's decision regarding the annexation application is final and will be reflected with a first and second reading of the associated annexation ordinance. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure of the hearing? Seeing none? Good evening, Mr. Brown. How are you?
I'm just great. Thanks
Wonderful.
a lot, Mayor, and I'll just proceed ahead.
Yes, sir.
As you mentioned, we're calling this the North Pine annexation and zone change. Here's a map showing the 3 tax lot parcels. We have 2 here owned by CNS, and the Vancouvering property that Councilor Smith mentioned is right here, giving us a total of about 10 acres. This map shows you the zoning of R1 for these properties if they're brought in as planned in accordance with our comprehensive plan that has the low-density residential designation. And all the properties around have that same R1 zoning except the property directly to the north, which is still vacant and has the R1.5 zoning. This gives you a better indication in the city as a whole where the site is setting along North Pine Street. Here is those same 3 parcels with an aerial showing you that they're mostly a fairly level area, mostly treeless, except we've got the Vancouvering property and home in this area here, and another home on the site down below that particular area, and a few trees up on the edge. Maybe this map shows it better. You have the Pine Street frontage and you have Oak Street frontage over on the west side. And so the private property goes into the Oak Street right-of-way, but you'll see that we're annexing 9.99 total acres, 9.69 is private property, and then 0.30 acres is the half of the right-of-way of North Pine Street. Our review criteria as applicable in all annexations, we've had a whole series of them coming in front of the council here, and we've got more on the way, is the provisions that are under CMC 1684. Then we also review the provisions under 1654, which have to do with the change in zoning that automatically occurs at the same time that we address the annexation of the property. And both the annexation criteria and the amendments to a zoning map address how it conforms with the comprehensive plan, and they both address, is there going to be adequate utility services able to be extended to the property proposed to be annexed, so that it can adequately accommodate the proposed development that the new zoning district would allow for the property. And 1689 is whether all the proper procedures were followed in the application processing. And then the comprehensive plan tells us to look for the, especially the policies and policy 6, which has to do with the special areas of concern that you're all aware of. This property is in no way located in any special areas of concern. And as far as staff can see, it completely complies with any other applicable policies that are within the comprehensive plan document. the state statute requirements, as far as we're aware of, are being followed. They're basically talk about how you deal with boundary changes when they occur. And as far as our urban growth management agreement, this area is, and it's actually a pretty important consideration, is that this is completely an island, totally surrounded by, except for the property to the north, developed property within the city of Canby. So there's a lot of pluses related to annexing islands within the community. That's one of the review criterias in the annexation ordinance, is the social and economic and physical benefits that could accrue to the city by annexing. And of course, any surrounding properties or the property that's being proposed to be annexed already has the feel that it's completely within the city. And if you're going to recognize the fact that it's in our urban growth boundary, it's been designated for urbanization, waiting for the time when the property owners are ready to do that. And so it seems like that's a recognition, since they're interested in doing that at this time, that there can be a benefit to the community in utilizing area that was designated for urbanization as for as long as it has, allowing them to contribute to the improvements that the adjacent roads will have when they're developed, and recognizing that we have utility services all around, and so the extension of those has been shown to be readily available to serve this development. No need for any new pump stations, very easy extensions that the developer will completely be responsible for serving this particular property as it comes into the city. This is a conceptual layout for the property. This particular drawing shows 40 lots. I understand more recently here they're thinking about possibility of adding one additional lot to their design. But there is a indication here of a pedestrian pathway flowing between this cul-de-sac, and that helps with connectivity that we like to see whenever we can. Obviously, we're not going to require somebody to tear down their house if they don't want to do that. And so this is a way to keep that connectivity, maybe not by vehiculars. We have that connection down below. But this is very likely to be very similar to the plan that we'll end up seeing when the property is proposed for development. And part of that is actually guaranteed because this area is located within a defined development agreement area that our annexation map shows. This property and the property that's undeveloped to the north are both in that defined development agreement area. And as such, the applicant has provided a development agreement. We have included things that staff felt were important that we wanted to guarantee would be applicable when they actually submit a development application, such as critical street connections and the improvement of both Oak Street and North Pine Street adjacent to the property, so that we have those, and understanding that they're going to provide all the necessary extensions and development internal to their proposed development. So this was reviewed by the Planning Commission on their September 24th meeting. They did recommend approval of this annexation, changing the zone as requested, be in accordance with the comprehensive plan, and included their approval of the proposed development agreement, the draft that they reviewed at that time. And the development agreement is done in a manner that we require it. It's stated within 7 days should this annexation be approved. So the annexation ordinance says that it should be filed as a requirement to agreeing to annexation and providing the new zone for the property, and that it gets done before it takes effect. So we have to recognize that process, I guess. Are there any questions about the staff report?
Thank you, Brian. Anything? Yes, Councilor Parker.
Well, it's actually a little bit refreshing to see a application like this that's whose complexity is not one that we faced recently. Brian, is your council packet paged the same way ours is? Can you go to page 29? There's a little gem in there that I think is worth mentioning. That part of this annexation process involves projection of population growth. And am I reading this correct, Brian, that the projection for growth in Canby over the next 15 years is expected to be slower than it was over the last 10 years?
That's my understanding. We had a pretty long stretch of a 2.5% growth rate, and I believe that it is less, the projections. And Portland State University makes those projections for every city in the state now.
All right. Well, it's interesting. When I talk to constituents, usually growth and the pace of growth is one of the top issues. And I did a tour of North Plains, Oregon, and their projected growth for the next 2 years is 25%. But I thought it was interesting that the projections here is that over the next 15 years, it's going to be less than what we've seen over the past 10.
And I think that's important because, as you know, we're right in the thick of a fast-paced growth for Canby right now, and people think it's completely out of control. And it's good to balance and let them know that, hey, this is rapid, but it's not out of control, so to speak. You can look at places like North Plains and such to see what really.
Sir, any other comments or questions for Mr. Brown? Okay. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. I will open up the public hearing now for testimony, and we will hear from the applicant. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. This one's a little bit easier conversation than the last one, Mr. Gibbons.
Yes, it certainly is. I needed a few of those. For the record, my name is Rick Givens. I'm a planning consultant for Icon Construction and Development. My address is 18680 Sunblaze Drive in Oregon City. As Mr. Brown presented, this is a very straightforward application. The property is completely surrounded by city limits, in addition to providing housing that, according to your comprehensive plan, will be needed over the next few years. It works well as far as infilling that area of the town. We're going to get Oak Street continued through and extended as a fully improved public street. Get a connection of 15th Street through the property. We'll have a other connection to the north, so that when that property, our 1.5 property to the north is developed, there can be a nice grid system. The the water system will be looped, so it'll help improving pressure and flows throughout the area. So there's a lot of benefits to the community, in addition to obviously to my clients and getting a property that they can develop. The plan that Brian showed you on the screen is very close to what we anticipate will be the application. We haven't really, gotten into that, so that's not part of the presentation tonight, but we anticipate all of the lots will be standard 7,000 square foot lots. We're not going to do anything in the way of density transfers that were so controversial on our last go around. It'll be a very straightforward type of Canby project. I can go into more of the details regarding our application, but I don't think that's probably necessary, but I would be glad to answer questions if you have them.
Is it all for Mr. Gibbons?
I do have one.
Yes, Councilor Hyde.
Thank you. That pedestrian path
Yes.
that would connect with North Pine. Now, is that envisioned to be a street? I mean, perhaps in future?
No, because of the location of Mr. Van de Koveren's house, it really isn't possible to run that 16th Street through all the way. So we would have a cul-de-sac and just a pedestrian bike path connection there that would be limited to that use, no vehicular traffic through there.
So even after he sells, I mean,
There really isn't a need for it. You know, we've got a grid system that works well.
Okay.
And since North Pine is a collector street, you kind of want to limit the number of intersections anyway. So having that one that close is probably not advisable anyway, so.
Great. Anything else? No?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons, appreciate it. Continue on with the hearing. Proponents, those in favor, I don't have any yellow cards and not seeing anyone running to the podium. And I also have no opponents, those that are not in favor. So we'll move through that, and then no rebuttal is needed, so Mr. Gibbons, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Questions from the dais? Anything for staff or no? Nope. Okay. Any discussion needed at this time?
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Pretty straightforward. Okay.
The streets all line up.
more or less, more or less.
There's no weird
Next.
density.
Yeah.
Actually, if I remember right, didn't Scott Van de Koevering actually get sewer access a year or two ago because of a situation right there?
He did, and that's,
Yeah.
I think the principal reason he's annexing now as part of this
That's what I was
process is
wondering.
to meet that obligation that and the commitment he made to the city.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering because I noticed his property wasn't really developing and I was wondering if that was all
Yeah.
connected. So I guess.
Good memory. Yeah, just again, as a piece for those viewing at home and those here. So again, Mr. Gibbons did talk about that in our packet, and I think was talked about a concept plan, but tonight we're just looking at the annexation piece and the zone change. So we're not even getting into where things will be plotted or streets or whatnot, but so I just want to reiterate that fact that we're not, because I know there were some concerns brought up at the Planning Commission meeting, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of time to address those when the concept plan comes. So I just want to make sure everyone's clear that we're delineating the two pieces of the process. So on that front, okay. We'll come up to the, I guess, this resolution here in a little bit, Kim. Oh, all right.
Are we supposed to do that now? Okay.
I move to approve the Iconic Annexation Zone Change and Development Agreement File ANN/ZC 18-03 pursuant to the recommendation forwarded by the Planning Commission, including the proposed development agreement.
Motion's been made by Councilor Spoon and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve, thank you, to approve the Icon Annexation Zone Change and Development Agreement File ANN/ZC 18-03 pursuant to the recommendation forwarded by the Planning Commission, including the proposed development agreement. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to resolutions and ordinances. Kim?
The first resolution we have is Resolution 1299. This is reducing street tree fees for new development.
Thank you, Kim. And I believe Jennifer, our Public Works Director, is going to be sharing this with us.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Jennifer.
So in July of the beginning of this year, we did a fee update and increased the street fee from, was it 200, I believe, at the time, to 500, in the hopes that we would do some implementation of a bigger program with the street trees. That didn't come to fruition. A lot of things kind of happened all at once when I first came on. And so at this time, we're looking to reduce that street fee back down to $225, what better represents about what we're spending currently when we purchase this tree and install it and water and maintain it for about a year. And so that's the reason for the reduction of the street tree, is just to kind of better represent what service we're providing at this time until we can go out, take a better look at what kind of program we want to put in place and see if we need to make an adjustment for the tree fee at that time. Is there any questions?
So the big thing here is we're lowering it from the 500 to the 250, and it's
Was it 250 or 225? 250, okay.
250. And then it looks like changing the language in terms of just the amount of years that we're monitoring the trees.
For a year,
Okay.
yeah. And then I believe there's some reimbursement being done for anybody who paid the additional fee back to when it was implemented, so.
Yeah, we haven't changed the type of tree that we'll be planting. Our initial intent was to do a more robust program, begin to install root barrier, maintain the tree for a 3-year period, and
Yeah,
replacing
depending
it,
on the type of tree, yeah.
up to a 3-year period, and in conversations, we just felt that we got a little bit ahead of ourselves, a little bit ahead of the construction community, and it was appropriate to step back, reevaluate, have some community meetings, bring, at an appropriate time, bring information in a work session to the city council and the mayor, give you an opportunity to talk about it, look at the options available to you, and then provide us an ultimate course of direction.
So just maybe a history question, or history on why it is that we started influence or having say over what trees were going in with our home
You mean the
builders.
type of tree?
Well, just because we didn't always have a say in what trees were being planted and doing the planting for them, correct?
Now, we have for a number of years, for as long as I think any of you have been on the council. You remember the year?
I think it's about 7 years ago, isn't it, Brian?
Yeah.
I've spoke out against the street tree ordinance probably 100 times at planning commission meetings.
Yeah.
And
Anti-tree?
Street tree
Program.
for a long time. The city taking over the planting was about.
Yeah, and we modified it marginally a couple times. The original ordinance as it came out had not provided an allowance for non-plantable trees that were affected by driveways or utilities. And so we've been working with the construction community over the last 4 years in trying to create an environment that accomplishes what we want to accomplish, which is making sure that street trees that are acceptable to the city are planted and taken care of for the first year after their planting. And we've had some pretty good success. I think that overall the construction community is okay with this program as it is. I still get complaints from time to time, but at least now most of the trees that are being planted in Canby and new developments are surviving and thriving.
And just to, if I could, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just to give a little summary for those that aren't familiar with the street tree ordinance that weren't on the council back then, it essentially says that every single new development lot must have one tree that is adjacent to the street.
Yep.
And that tree has to be maintained, or is, I guess, planted by the city, but then maintained by that owner, and if they don't maintain it, can be even on the divide in between the sidewalk and the street, right?
Yeah,
Can be
that's
on their
actually,
property
the
or
preferred location is
or
between
in
the sidewalk
street.
and the,
But then there's no maintenance after that first year guaranteed by anybody for anything, which is a big source of my wrath.
So, I mean, was there a lot of pushback when we raised it to $500 after that last budget cycle?
There was, and you know, I take responsibility for that. We didn't do a good job of vetting to the construction building community what our plans and concept were in rolling out this new program, and it just, in a sense of ultimate responsibility, we felt it was appropriate to step back, reduce the fee. $250 is less than the cost in reality, or just barely making the cost, because our trees cost typically between $200 and $225. And that includes the planting, and then we water them for the first year after they're planted. So we're closely covering costs now at $250. Maybe a little bit on the slim side, but we're closely covering costs. But we just felt that we got ahead of ourselves a little bit, and we wanted to back off and then start again.
Thanks, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No. Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution 1299, a resolution reducing street tree fees for new development.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Height to approve Resolution 1299, a resolution reducing street tree fees for new development. Any further discussion?
Yep.
Yes, Councilor Smith.
I'm opposed to this. I think if we're going to have the street tree program, we need to adequately fund it, which is a strange thing for me to say. But with the, I don't think we want to require trees in our city that there's no buddy with any obligation to maintain them. I think it's a recipe for long-term disaster. I think certainly trees are a good thing, and having trees on residential lots are a good thing. If you've been by my house, you know that. But I don't think we should defund a program that we've started and created and leave it sort of withering on the vine to dry and die.
And I appreciate Councilor Smith's comments and don't disagree with him on that, and that is why we're proposing that it be increased from 200 to 250, because it more closely, and I would also agree with Councilor Smith that it may not completely cover the cost, but I think it more closely covers the cost, and certainly we're in a better position today than we were prior to the recommendation to you that we go from 200 to 250 for the same program that we had.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Councilor Spoon.
Currently, and I know we're talking about the funding, but this is important to me, if after the year or eventually 3 years, if we ever get to the point that it's more robust, is it on city property?
No,
or
it is on private property, and the private property owner is responsible to maintain it.
Wait, not the planter strip. We're talking front yards? I thought we were talking...
No, it's actually in the planter strip. Our goal is to plant the trees in the planter strip in front. So you have a planter strip, sidewalk, and front yard. Right. And the goal is to create an attractive neighborhood. And the best way to do that is to get trees in the neighborhood, find a canopy for our streets, and improve our overall streetscape appearance. And I obviously wasn't here 7 years ago, and when this came forward, this was a vision of a previous council, and one that this council, majority of which at least has supported, at least up to this point.
I'd have a question for Public Works. How does the street crew feel about street trees?
I think they support it in general.
And leaves?
I mean, I think leaves are just...
Stormwater supports the accumulation of leaves on the streets?
I can actually answer that. I spoke with Jerry Nelzine, who has the responsibility to maintain them, and he actually loves the program. He thinks that it beautifies our residential communities in a manner greater than the cost of providing the leaf sweeping and the ongoing care. He thinks that it adds enough additional value to our overall community that it's worthwhile. I asked him that specific question.
And in fact, on a personal note, Auburn Farms, where I live, there's 79 homes up there. We weren't able to get street trees when our neighborhood went in 14 years ago because these swales, these bioswales were in there and we couldn't plant them. And the developer had told us we were getting trees. We weren't initial owners, but our neighbors were upset. I mean, the residents, we were promised trees, but we couldn't plant them because of the swales. And so, I mean, yeah, your property values go up $7,000 on average, apparently. Anyway, I'm a big fan. I think it's great. Leaves and all. Just putting it out there. Yeah.
Councilor Spoon.
One more question, because I'm mystified by this street tree ordinance. So the city plants the tree, we require the developer to have them put in. They become the property and the responsibility of the property owner. Is there a time period that the property owner is required to leave the tree there, or can they just cut it down later if they want to?
They cannot cut it down later. They're required to come in and get a permit to cut it down and then propose something to put back in place that's off the street tree list.
And if the roots
We are
damage
opening up a can.
Sorry,
No,
if the
it's a
roots
great
damage the
question. but
concrete, they have to replace the concrete.
The question is the
Yeah,
fee.
this is a fee, guys, but we're going, I understand it, but understand the questions that you're asking, and to Tyler Smith's points as well, we are opening up a totally different box of conversation than the fee.
I understand. For clarity, the reason I was asking, because it was important to me.
for it.
It was important to me how long
you.
the life of the tree was there in terms of like the fee. It actually was related in my head, though it didn't sound that way. I appreciate that it didn't sound that way.
And these are all good questions, and they will, or at least can be a subject of a future work session before the city council, so that we can kind of cover these, and you'll ultimately have the policy discretion to decide if you want to continue the program in its current form, in some modified form, or not at all.
So, Mr. Robinson, in lieu of, there's a motion on the table, but I'm going to ask a clarifying question. So if we're not covering the costs, I mean, is there the possibility of increasing the fee slightly just so that we are covering costs?
I think we're close enough. And I say that because this is a 25% increase over the current cost. And we hadn't increased the fee for a while, and the cost of trees has gone up fairly substantially, but we felt that it was probably appropriate to take this initial jump because we hadn't properly vetted before you the larger question, the public policy question of how robust and how aggressive we as staff should be in developing and administering this program. So this is an interim step that will allow us to capture a greater portion or percentage of our costs. We haven't done an exact study which would be required to be able to nail the number down precisely. As I said, this is kind of a lean estimate, but certainly is much closer than the $200 was, and it is the best recommendation that I could come up with to make you.
Quickie for him.
You have
Yeah, related. Rick, is this eligible to be put on the master fee schedule?
It is on the master fee schedule.
Okay.
We're actually amending the master fee schedule.
Okay, and so if you want to change it down the road, we can include it as part of that?
Yeah.
And not deal with it as a separate resolution?
Right. The only reason you're seeing this as a separate resolution is because we're moving it back to the way it, to a number less than what you had adopted in the master fee schedule.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Question, why is it retroactive?
Because we've had one developer who paid the higher fee of all the work that's been done. He hasn't planted the trees yet, and it seemed, frankly, unfair to me that one developer, because he came in and was proactive in paying his street tree fees, should be penalized when all others who may have dragged their feet a little bit coming in would be able to pay the lower amount. I just thought that it was a question of fairness.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 5-1.
The next item we have is Resolution 1300. This is authorizing the extension of municipal sewer service to 1751 North Redwood Street, tax lot number 31E 27C 01502, located outside of the Canby city limits pursuant to the Urban Growth Management Agreement between Clackamas County and the city of Canby.
Yes, my next-door neighbors, Richard and Carol Risley, are in the process of selling their residence on North Redwood Street. They in the process of having their home evaluated, had a septic test. The septic test failed. The county, if a sewer connection is available within 300 feet of an existing failed septic system, will not re-permit a new septic system. And so that being the case, we have been in discussion with the Risleys and with the county in trying to resolve this issue so that they could proceed with the sale, marketing and sale of their home. We had two conditions that were identified in a document created in 2001, which kind of outlined the terms under which a out of city limit connection can be made. That one is a potential threat of health or environmental hazards, which can be mitigated by hooking up rather than continuing to use a failing septic system. And the other, in this case, is a promise of the property owner or subsequent property owners to annex to the city within a 2-year period. This is earlier mentioned this evening is the agreement that we had with the
Scott Vandercoover?
Yes,
Right.
Vandercoover, and which you had approved here about a little less than 2 years ago. Staff recommendation is to approve the resolution and the authorization for the extension of municipal sewer service. The county is in support of this request, conditioned upon the city council approving it also.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate that. Any questions?
Rick?
Yes, Councilor Spoon.
Rick, I see that just like with Mr. Van de Koovering's property, they are required to pursue annexation within 2 years. And it looks like from this that because they're in the process of marketing their home, that they are, then of course required to disclose that to a future buyer. What happens if someone doesn't?
Well, we can pursue on their behalf.
So there's okay, I was just wondering.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't run into it since I've been here, but.
Now, this is a really unusual circumstance,
Yeah.
but we can compel and ultimately lien the property, I think, if we needed to.
That answers my question. Thanks.
Councilor Parker?
This is kind of interesting to me. Back when I was a cub reporter in Jackson County, this happened all the time. Now, I just wanted to clarify that the applicants here are paying full freight for the cost of installing the sewer line, correct?
They're paying for the cost of installing the sewer line, they're paying for systems development charges, and they and their successors will be paying the monthly fee.
Yeah, there was a wonderful little story back in Jackson
As well as
County
the
back in the
annexation
70s where a developer was able to build some houses outside of the city limits, planning that his sewer system, his septic tanks would fail. And at the time, the law was in Medford that the city of Medford paid to extend a sewer line 2 miles at the city's expense. The name of the company that put the subdivision in with the failing septic tanks was a reporter's dream. It was named Robin Hood Corporation.
Wow.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution 1300, a resolution authorizing the extension of municipal sewer service 1751 North Redwood Street, tax lot number 31 East, 27C, 01502, located outside of the Canby city limits pursuant to the Urban Growth Management Agreement between Clackamas County and City of Canby.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Smith and seconded by Councilor Spoon to approve Resolution 1300, a resolution authorizing the extension of municipal sewer service to 1751 North Redwood Street, tax lot number 31E 27C 01502, located outside of the Canby city limits pursuant to the Urban Growth Management Agreement between Clackamas County and the City of Canby. Any other discussion?
I'm just thinking that it's good that we're doing this sooner than later, because a failing septic system, like, what's happening below. So, if there was an emergency clause, I'd be all over it. All right, that's my comment.
Okay.
All right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes 6-0.
The next item is Resolution 1301. This is requesting Clackamas County to surrender jurisdiction of the South First Street between 13th Avenue, mile point 0.00, and the current Canby city limit, mile point 0.31, being a total of approximately 1,609 linear feet.
I'd like to open, if I may, with a comment and a compliment. This is a discussion that we initially engaged with the city in about 18 months ago because we recognized future development down south for. When Jennifer came on board, she took over the negotiations and the communication with Clackamas County and has done just an absolutely outstanding job. I can't compliment her highly enough on the work that she did in bringing this to you tonight.
Thank you, Rick. There's two ordinances here, or sorry, resolutions here, because there's two sections of roadway, one that's within the actual city limits and a short, smaller section that's without. Like Rick said, we had several negotiations with the county, and based on the MOU that exists today, we were able to negotiate. It's the way the MOU is written, we're able to negotiate payment from the county. I believe it was about $56,000 that we're going to get for the county for that 2-inch overlay. So once this is signed, then the city of Canby will take over jurisdiction for maintenance and preservation of that roadway here on out. Any questions?
Nope, I'm glad to see that we're making at least small headway with the county getting their roads turned over to us for us to manage and have control over. So thank you.
You're welcome.
For your work. Yes.
It looks like Chair Bernard's already signed off on it.
Yeah.
Yes, I asked them to take it to their council first.
Great.
And start the process. So, and just a heads up, we're in negotiations over Ivy, South Ivy, from 99E down to about the bridge. The annexation came in through the 96 homes, Brian, was it? For the actual roadway, so now we can take jurisdiction of it.
Mr. Mayor?
Slowly but surely, and enough whining and complaining and
Kicking and screaming
being a
and
squeaky
hollering.
wheel that the county is finally paying off, so.
And I would also add, you may wonder why there are two resolutions, or actually two sections of South First Street, one of which is already within the city limits, and for which the city is receiving the value of the 2-inch overlay on the existing street. The balance is a street that will ultimately be annexed, and the improvements to that street will be done by the developer as they build out the project.
But I actually don't understand if it's already in the city limits. I don't understand.
It's within the city limits, but it's one of those county roads within the city limits, county responsible roads within the city limits. And so we're taking ownership of it. They're giving us money for an overlay. This is one of those pretty good initial steps for the city because it has pretty good overall asphalt. The subsurface of the road is in pretty good shape. Not a lot of cracking, and there are sidewalks through a majority of that area as well. So we've got curb gutter sidewalks and good asphalt right now.
Mr. Parker, did you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to echo your sentiments that for years this council was in a stasis with the county of, we'll take the roads if you bring them up to city standards, and they saying no, and nothing was happening. When I talk to constituents, the number one thing is, why do we have crappy roads inside the city limits, and why are they county roads? It's just something that doesn't make sense to people. So I realize we can't do it all at once. We're nibbling away at it, but it's a start. So Jennifer, thank you.
And we have our eye on North Pine and South Redwood and a couple other roads that are
Section of township that we thought we had.
a section of township that we actually thought we owned and found out we didn't.
Whoops.
So we're learning as we go.
Perfect.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution 1301, a resolution requesting Clackamas County to surrender jurisdiction of South First Street between 13th Avenue, mile point 0.00, and the current Canby city limit, mile point 0.31, being a total of approximately 1,609 linear feet.
Second.
Motion's been made by Counselor Hensley and seconded by Counselor Height to approve resolution number 1301, a resolution requesting Clackamas County to surrender jurisdiction of South First Street between 13th Avenue, which is mile point 0.00, and the current Canby city limit, mile point 0.31, being a total of approximately 1,609 linear feet. Any further questions or discussion?
One more comment. I just wanted to acknowledge, too, that the county really has done right, I think, by us here. And I think this group often likes to kind of criticize the county. But in this case, I think we should say, look, this was a good partnership. Thank you, county. So I'll say that. Thank you, Clackamas County.
Agree.
Thank you.
I agree.
All right.
Thank you. All right, anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution 1302, a resolution requesting Clackamas County to surrender jurisdiction of South First Street between the current Canby city limit, mile point 0.31, and the end of South First Street, mile point 0.37, being a total of approximately 330 linear feet, 40 feet in width.
Second.
Motion's been made by Counselor Smith and seconded by Counselor Hensley to approve resolution number 1302, a resolution requesting Clackamas County to surrender jurisdiction of South First Street between the current Canby city limit, mile point 0.31, and end of South First Street, mile point 0.37, being a total of approximately 330 linear feet by 40 feet in width. Any other questions or comments, discussion?
No
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, good job.
The next item we have is ordinance 1493. This is before you for second reading. The next two ordinances, this is the short version of the title that's on the agenda. You'll need to read the long version in the packet. Ordinance 1493 is proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby of 9.55 acres, including 8.91 acres of real property and 0.64 acres of right-of-way, amending the zoning and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the city of Canby.
Go, Tyler.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance 1493, an ordinance proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby, Oregon, at 9.55 acres, including 8.91 acres of real property described as tax lots 800 and 900 of portion of the southeast one quarter of section 25, township 3 south, range 1 east in the Willamette Meridian, tax map 31E 27DB, and tax lot 601 of portion of southeast quarter of section 27, township 3 south, range 1 east, Willamette Meridian, tax map 31 East, 27 AD, and approximately 0.64 acres of adjacent northeast territorial road right-of-way, and amending the existing county zoning from rural residential farm forest 5 acre, RRF-5, to city low-density residential R1 for the entire area, and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the Canby city limits.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
All right, the motion has been made by Counselor Smith and seconded by Council President Dale to approve ordinance number 1493, an ordinance proclaiming annexation of the city of Canby, Oregon, 9.55 acres, including 8.91 acres of real property, described as tax lots 800 and 900 of portion of southeast one quarter, section 27, T.3S, R1E, Willamette Meridian, is that correct, Counselor?
Correct.
Tax map 31E 27DB and tax lot 601 of portion of southeast quarter, section 27, T3S, R1E, Willamette Meridian, tax map 31E 27AD, and approximately 0.64 acres of adjacent northeast territorial road right-of-way, and amending the existing county zoning from rural residential farm forest 5 acre, RRFF5, to city low-density residential, R1, for the entire area, and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the Canby city limits. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries.
That's actually a
That was a
roll call
second.
vote.
Knew that.
Just testing her.
Of course.
Counselor Smith.
Aye.
Counselor Parker.
Aye.
Counselor Hensley. Counselor Dale.
Aye.
Counselor Height.
Aye.
Counselor Spoon.
Aye.
Now I get to say that the motion's passed 6-0, right, Kim?
You're good.
Okay, thanks. The motion carries 6-0.
The next item is ordinance 1496. This is proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby of 9.99 acres, including 9.69 acres of real property and approximately 0.30 acres of adjacent North Pine right-of-way, amending the zoning and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the city of Canby.
Kim?
Tyler's looking for it.
I got it. I'll move.
Somebody's got it.
I move we adopt ordinance number 1496, an ordinance proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby, Oregon, 9.99 acres, including 9.69 acres of real property described as tax lots 3100, 3200, and 3201 of portion of Southeast 1/4, Section 28, Township 3S, Range 1E, Willamette Meridian, Tax Map 31E28DD, and approximately .30 acres of adjacent North Pine Street right-of-way, and amending the existing county zoning from rural residential farm forest 5-acre, RRFF-5, to city low-density residential, R1, for the entire area, and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the Canby city limits.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. So we have ordinance motion's been made by Counselor Spoon and seconded by Counselor Height to approve ordinance number 1496, an ordinance proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby, Oregon, 9.99 acres, including 9.69 acres of real property described as tax lots 3100, 3200, and 3201 of portion of Southeast 1/4, Section 28, T3S, R1E, Willamette Meridian, Tax Map 31E28DD, and approximate 0.30 acres of adjacent North Pine Street right-of-way, and amending the existing county zoning from rural residential farm forest 5-acre, RRFF-5, to city low-density residential, R-1, for the entire area, and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the Canby city limits. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. Great, thank you, Kim. Next on the agenda is, under new business, is 2 items. Findings, conclusions, and final order for annexation 18-02, zone change 18-02, the Cutsforth property. Is that for you, Joe? Any comments?
No, you just need to make a motion that, to approve the findings, conclusion, and final order.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the findings and final order of the city on annexation 18-02 / ZC 1802 as presented.
Second.
So the motion's been made by Counselor Smith and seconded by Counselor Spoon to approve the findings and conclusion and final order for annexation 18-02 and zone change 18-02 as presented. Any further discussion?
Maybe we should mention that we had the public hearing at our last meeting about this. For those that weren't here, we discussed it at length. Thank you.
Well done.
Okay.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. Next item is the findings, conclusions, and final order for the zone change 18-04 for the, was the Busey project on southeast, or the piece of property on southeast, South Ivy and Southeast 13th. Again, we had a public hearing on that one as well that evening. On the 3rd, regarding the zone change, and for the corner there, council at that point in juncture voted 5-0 to deny based on the findings, and I'm just going to recapitulate the findings just so that as we all talk about this conversation. So staff report was presented and written and oral testimony was received at the city council. The city council voted to deny the zone change because it didn't meet the mandatory approval criteria set out in policy 6 for this particular area of special concern, area K, which requires an actual usage application to be considered at the same time as the zone change. Without a definitive use for consideration at the time of application, a zone change to residential commercial in this area would allow various and numerous incompatible outright uses, which would also violate policy number 1 of the comprehensive plan. Considering the nature of the surrounding uses in the area, R1, school, and high traffic, the amount of potential outright uses for the residential commercial zoning listed in Canby Municipal Code 16.24 that are conflicting and incompatible with the current surrounding uses towards the city's mandate to group compatible uses as necessitated by policy number 1. I just wanted to read that to make sure we all understood what those findings were based on our conversation. If there was anything, does that meet our criteria?
I'd like to say Joe put in a really
Yeah.
good job of encapsulating what our conversation and our reasoning was. I thought that was really well done.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Very good. Okay.
I'll make a motion that we accept the findings, conclusions, and final order of zone change 1804.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Heighton, seconded by Council President Dale to accept the findings, conclusions, and final order for zone change 18-04 as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. Thank you all. City Administrator business and staff reports. Nothing this evening. Another opportunity for citizen input, if anyone would like to provide input. No? Kim, action review.
You have adopted Resolution 1299, 1300, 1301, and 1302. You've adopted Ordinance 1493. You've approved Ordinance 1496 to come up for second reading on November 7th, and you've adopted the findings, conclusions, and final order for ANN 1802, ZC 1802, and ANN 1804, ZC 1804.
Great. Thank you. Joe, do we have an exec session this evening?
We do not.
Great. And I left this out of my my mayor's notes, and the street tree conversation reminded me that it is fall, the leaves are changing, and it looks beautiful, and they are falling into our yards. With that all being said, please do not rake your leaves into the street. Our street sweeper then has to work extra hard to pick up leaves, run them back to Public Works, or we have to dispatch the dump truck to pick up the leaves and have the street sweeper dump them. If you would like the city to dispose of your leaves for you, I'm sure we can orchestrate a lovely street leave pickup fee in the city of Canby. I would like not to do that, so please, bags are cheap, plastic bags are available. Please rake them up, bag them, and our local disposal company will gladly take them away.
So if they're your leaves, they're your responsibility.
Unless they blow into someone else's yard.
Oh, yeah, don't throw them in your neighbor's yard.
Sorry, Ray and Helen.
Yeah. The big P, again, it's staff time, workload, and it's also about flooding when the rains do come and covering up our street grades. So we want to prevent flooding and properly use city resources when we can. So I will get off my soapbox. I am anti-flooding as well. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Good night, Canby. Thank you.